Hello, Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. This is another episode here where we're going to be talking about Nate Herbig and really the offensive line here in general, the way the Steelers used them last year and what it is that we got. So overall, the offensive line has been burdened with their underperforming, their inadequate. And we really saw this in full effect 2 years ago, whenever we couldn't do anything. Ben was getting sacked, Ben was getting murdered, and they were bad the last 2 years under Ben. That was the offensive line then. The offensive line that played in 2022 was not that bad. Yes, it had some of the same pieces. Chooks was on both, but guess what? Chooks grew up and Chooks got much, much better. One of the most underrated right tackles in the league. Bringing in McDaniel, massive game changer. Instant filling of the right guard spot. And as he progressed, really him and Chooks got better as the year went on, especially playing together when they were doing double team blocks. That is whenever we saw some of the big runs happen, especially from the speed shoot off to the right. And granted, Najee didn't do it until the second half, but that's where we really saw the running game start to take off. Where we did not see the improvement we wanted to see was out of that left guard position. What they were asking Dotson to do last year was not his forte, but clearly something that the running game of the Steelers wanted to do. One of their common plays that they ran a lot in September that they ended up having to give up upon was either the second tight end being Spaeth, second away from the tackle, or Spaeth lined up next to the tackle, next to Moore, would pull in a shallow pull coming around and then come right up the center. And what Dotson's responsibility was to pin out and make sure no one got through him, essentially making sure that no one could chip the pulling tight end coming around behind him. And that play instantly breaks if Dotson gets blown backwards. Because now he is in the puller's lap. The puller end up getting thrown off base. There's no contact. And all it is your center in the backfield like, oh, please don't kill me. I know you're about to hit me, but let's be a little nice about this. And that got taken out of the playbook because it didn't work. But the reason it didn't work wasn't necessarily the scheme. And anyone who wants to question my opinion on keynote of the scheme, I refer you to the episode on Monday. But it's not a poorly designed play in and of itself. But if Dotson can't maintain that block, it doesn't work. The other thing that Dotson was, kind of limited upon that DeCastro was amazing at is he's not good taking the angle on the second level, particularly on a zone block. DeCastro knew exactly where that linebacker was going to be, and he was like a heat-seeking missile, always cutting him off. Dotson just doesn't get his head in front of him, and it just leads to being a spot. So this is a long story short saying is the Steelers have just declared that the left guard position is still up for grabs. It's not necessarily going to be Dotson's. Not to mention the injury history that the guy unfortunately brings to the table. So here comes the new signing here of Nate Herbig. Now, I want to just start by breaking down the numbers because I do believe that the numbers tell you the truth of what the team is thinking. $8 million contract across 2 years, only the first year is guaranteed. That's not starter money, nowhere near what we gave McDaniel last year. It's basically kind of telling us from the money side, he might just be the glue. This might just be, hey, we signed a guy early in free agency, but we don't know if he's even going to make the team. It's probably making the team because of the $4 million guaranteed, but he's not necessarily the long run answer. But he could be. And that's the joy of this. This is really the joy of the whole offensive line, the way they built. They're all young. Each and every one of them across the board, even counting Cole. I mean, in terms of center's years, they can go up and play center into their mid-30s. Always seem to 35, but it can be done. So for comparison, I believe Kelsey is 33 years old over in Philadelphia, who just won the Super Bowl everyone's raving about. So It can be done. So this is going to be at least 4 years if they can gel together. And what I'm looking at this team is where I come into play and kind of tip my hand of what I think the first round draft pick should be is Moore, when he was in college, played more left guard than he did left tackle. And when we look at the offensive line's weakness, it was definitely left tackle and left guard. There's no way around that. Moore had a false start or a holding penalty. It felt like every single game, but it was every single game for the first 12. And you just can't have that in any offense, but particularly in one when Najee wasn't healthy yet, and we just weren't being able to throw the ball because of, well, obvious reasons. So when we look at this going through, we could have potentially a 4-horse race for the left guard spot if the first round pick is a left tackle. And given what this draft potentially could be with how many quarterback needy teams there are, a left tackle quality could potentially be sitting there at 17. And also, since you have the second round pick, you might even be able to move up to 12 if you really saw someone you wanted. And that potential exists whenever teams go crazy for a certain position. You know, it's why Davis fell last year and Philly was able to scoop him up because they're going crazy for wide receivers. This year it's going to be for quarterbacks, and people overpay for that. So I say this to point that out is if you bring in a left tackle with that first pick overall, and you have 4 people fighting for that one starting spot, those 4 people being Dotson, Herbig, Moore, and Kenneth Green, not all of them are making the team. And the question is, are they bringing 3 or 2 of them in? And who can be the backup center just in case? Herbig has done it in a pinch. Dotson has not. Obviously, Green had a season there and it didn't work out. So the question is, how does this shake out? To me, the left guard spot is the most compelling question entering into the season. Obviously, if we don't draft a left tackle, Moore just stays at left tackle. And he did develop, he did improve as the year went on. I mean, that can't be taken away from the guy. But if you can improve the left side of your offensive line, that was the weakest part of the Steelers' offense of the people on the field. I still believe the weakest part of their offense is the man in the booth, but they've already committed to him for at least this season as well. So overall, I really like the signing because there's virtually no reason not to. You know, he's young. He got hurt last year, that's true. Herbig got hurt, only played 11 games. He played on a Jets offensive line that, when they were running the ball with Deontay Hall, was great. Or correction, with Brees. But when Brees got hurt, the Jets fell apart. And coincidentally, it's about the time that Herbig got hurt. So is it Herbig wasn't there and that's why the Jets fell apart? Is it just because they're all Jets and they're inherently going to fall apart? It's a tough question. I give him just as good of a chance of any of the 4 of winning the position, Dan Moore being the wild card if he gets moved in there. But it's also not like I'm saying he is 100% night and day better than either Green or Dotson. I think we're basically just getting similar-ish type potential here, but because he's the new guy, it's possible that we love him more. But I'm not sure that he's the surefire answer because I don't see his film being that much drastically improved over Dotson's. That being said, same age, both young, both hungry, and it's going to be a fight. That fight is going to be so interesting, as I said before. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the two literally fight when you're on the hill at St. Vincent's out there checking them out. So I think it's gonna be good. And the one who's gonna love this the most is Najee. Wow, is he gonna get himself some holes? Because the one thing about Dotson, and this has been true, and I don't know why he can't keep this fire going, but as soon as he thinks his position is threatened, he can move a mountain when they are lined up over his face. he can blow someone back like there is nobody's business, like very few can do in the NFL right now. And an angry Dotson is a fun Dotson to watch. You're going to get a stupid penalty or two, but at least they're the aggressive kind and not the mental kind like Moore's false starts. So there's no way around this. The Steelers' offensive line, even if Herbig does not end up getting the gig, having his presence there as a potential guy to push Dotson makes this line better. I'm excited for it. I'm excited as a perpetual owner of Najee in every league, but more excited, the Steelers win when Najee goes off. And if Najee is going to have an easier road to do it, give me it. I still believe he's the most important person in this offense, especially whenever the plays are being drawn up by Canada and he has no idea how to give the ball to Pickens. But until that happens, this team needs to run through Najee, and his left side of the line just got better, and that's exciting for everyone involved. Here we go, Steelers. Let's run the ball and go win.